name is Kelly Ayat, quarterback at the University of Mount Tampa. In the off-season, it's important to do everything you can to prepare for the season. In high school, that means funding your program. In my experience, Vertical Raise is the ultimate online fundraiser platform. Now broaden your reach of your fundraiser and bring in more money than other platforms. And there are no sneaky or hidden fees like other companies. If you're trying to raise money for your program, reach out to Vertical Raise today.
The excitement of getting going, and obviously today's college basketball, a lot of new guys, a lot of new teams. So how would you just describe what it's been like getting going?
It's been great. Back at it. It's always fun to be back in the gym on a consistent basis with not a lot of hour restraints, right? In the preseason, it's short stints in and out. It's not necessarily as productive as it is when you get to full practices. So now we're just trying to figure out who we are. We've had some opportunities to play somebody in a different color jersey a couple times, and now we're just trying to figure out what areas we want to attack first in terms of our improvement and preparation for real games.
I think probably in the first 6 or so years on the job, a lot of times you're returning a lot of the core of the team, and you kind of know what to expect early on. Obviously that probably comes with some frustrations year in and year out, but also maybe some refreshment. How would you describe what that's like year in and year out, having it be a totally different team?
Yeah, there's positives and negatives, right? It's interesting because we returned 2 guys that played real minutes, and we returned the most experience of anyone in the conference outside of Portland State, right? And so it's interesting how that happens, which means that we're still in a good spot in terms of continuity. That's where the summer's really important because now from June through August, you're evaluating what you're bringing in as opposed to in the past we spent a lot of time with player development, and we still try to do that, but you got to figure out what guys can or can't do before you can develop, right? And so it makes those summers very interesting, and then it makes September way more valuable in terms of your preparation, whereas in the past, September was a lot of opportunity to experiment with things you might want to do. So less time for experiments now and more evaluate and try to squeeze in some development.
Is there some stuff you can learn from last year in terms of the way you guys did come together as a team that you can sort of take into this year?
Yeah, be patient. My patience was challenged last year. The chemistry was great in terms of guys wanting to celebrate each other's successes and okay with sharing time and shots and things like that. But then the chemistry wasn't great in terms of role refinement. What's a good shot? What's not a good shot? What's he good at? What's he not good at? It took them a long time to figure out how to make each other play to each other's strengths. And so once we figured that out, we became a good team. But prior to mid-January, we were not very good.
Does it kind of help that you've kind of been there, done that with a new roster, right? Because I know this will be a new team than last year, but like you mentioned, patience, the kind of formula, maybe how you did things. Does that help at all, maybe with the early portion of this group?
Yeah, but I think everyone in the country can say that they've been there, right? And so I think the continuity is the huge thing. And I know I mentioned we only returned 2 guys that played in real minutes. But we returned 6 guys that understand what it is to be in this program on a day-to-day basis. The value of being in school and not having off-court distractions so we can talk basketball. The value of showing up every day prepared for film and learn from walkthroughs and conversations and understanding that those things are just as valuable as the sweat we break. And that's probably why when you looked up and see the exhibition game, who was on the floor. And so, I think we're in a good spot in that regard. And then each year's just going to be a little different because the new guys, you've got different things that you've got to, kind of orchestrate for them to be successful. Whereas last year, it was more talent-driven. There were, guys that we had come in and played a lot of basketball. Kai Johnson has been a 3-year starter. Malik Moore was a starter at higher level. Joe Bridgen had played 5 more seasons. And so now we're transferring guys that don't have to much play this game. So it's a lot different.
That nucleus of guys that you bring back, obviously mentioned Tajon and Money, played a lot and things like that. But when you have some of the other guys that can talk to these guys and tell them how you guys did win last year, how much have you leaned on them?
A lot. More so in individual conversations, but then also just, they lead by example too. How you get from one drill to the next, and, the usage of terminology and things like that. So They all have impacted the transition for the new guys in their own special ways, and some of them have had to make transitions too because they're new ones.
Money mentioned that a lot of people thought he was going to leave, but he never thought he was going to leave, and he stayed. So what do you think of his loyalty, and what do you think of him being preseason player of the year?
There's no words for how I feel about the decision he made, or even how he processed it, because he never talked. The portal never came out of his mouth. Transfer never came out of his mouth. Anything other than putting on a Montana jersey never was in a conversation that he ever started. We brought some things to him as options and things to consider before making final decisions that we thought were important for him moving forward. But never did he bring any of that to us, and that's a very special situation, and that's why we love him as much as we do, and his teammates follow him and support him the way they do. He's a very selfless young man that wants a lot out of basketball, but he enjoys life as well off the court.
Jewelry Design Center. We want to be your jeweler for life.
Cash One Pawn, Missoula's #1 pawn shop.
You want money? We got money. You need money? We got money. We're cash.
Do yourself a favor and make Cash One Pawn part of your online shopping habits. Cash One Pawn has an awesome online inventory, everything from firearms to power tools to speaker equipment to jewelry. Visit Cash One Pawn today.
Cash One Pawn.
8720 Roller Coaster Road, CashOnePawn.com.
What do you like from what you've seen from some of the new guys on your team just through off-season and a couple exhibition matchups so far?
I won't go too far just because, we got some more games coming up, but there have been some pleasant surprises in terms of getting some things from some people that we didn't expect. But also there's been the challenges that you do expect too from all of the new faces, because they've got a lot to learn. Sometimes you got to unteach tendencies that were taught wherever else they were for 2 to 3 years, and then some of them it's continued growth as college basketball players. So common headaches that come with coaching and teaching that you should look forward to if you're in this business. But they've all been great to have in our program, and I'm grateful for all of them.
You're, obviously defending champs, voted #1. I think Money and Tay, they're going to understand what comes along with that. How do you kind of get a true freshman or a transfer who's coming from a program that maybe hasn't had that success ready to be kind of a hunted kind of a program?
Yeah. It's hard, Fortunately, I've been in a situation a lot, whether it was here or Cal or Dominion, where you're coming off of a championship and you return enough ammunition that people think you're still going to have a good team, and then playing through expectation, because that's the hardest thing to do. I much would prefer to be picked 4th or 5th and have something to be mad about and not have to worry about motivating the guys to put in the work. And so when you see banners and you hear people tell you you're good, you start to believe it. And so complacency has always been the one thing I've been afraid of, and that's what the biggest thing we try to avoid. So we just find new ways to talk about things to get better at and show them every day what they're not good at. While patting them on the back when they make improvements, but just keep the hunger. And if we can do that, we'll be fine.
Year 12 for you, just how's it feel you entering a new season? Does it feel different, or what's kind of your perspective?
It feels good. This is the second half for me in terms of pre-COVID, post-COVID. And I think college basketball is completely different after COVID. And the first 2 years of it were very hard. And I could feel fatigue from one season to the next. And the last 2 years have been special in terms of the program chemistry, the young men we've had in the program. And so I've been excited from one year to the next, a lot like I was in my first 2 or 3 years. So it's been great. Year 12 is phenomenal. Feels like year 3 right now.
Even if the faces are different, you guys have proven the last couple of years that the core tenets of basketball, like chemistry and teamwork, are still very important. How have you been able to manifest that on the court the last couple of years?
A large percentage of our fundraise dollars go to that. It's the time spent in June and July. It's the time spent when you travel. It's the time spent at a coach's house. You got to get these guys together. You got to keep them together. You got to get to know one another. You share the adversities. You support through the adversities. And once guys start realizing that this is how a family's supposed to operate, you become one. And that's really what this has been for us the last few years. It's really in all 11 years. We've been a family in one way or another. Some years you see it more than others.
That's what you kind of take this. It might be a kind of a very broad question and answer, but overall, like where you kind of see like the big sky and this level of basketball when it comes to the college basketball landscape going into this year.
I think it's hard. You know, when you look at just our conference in general, so many of us are so different in terms of how we go about things and what's important, where we recruit. I remember being asked if I had $75,000, where would I put it? That was one of the questions that was asked to me in an interview process. And I think if you ask all the coaches in our conference, they all would tell you something different. Right? We all have different philosophies. We all have different needs. And so as you see the state of college basketball right now, the differences are highlighted even more. And look at everyone's schedules and you can see it. Right? And so, I think the conference is in good hands. I think there's a lot of really good coaches in our conference. And so when you look at teams like Idaho and Portland State, they're so different than everyone else that's why they're striking distance of a championship in the preseason. And they've done a good job of recruiting to their strengths and style of play. And when you don't have to change style of play from year to year, you got a chance to be consistent. And so I think when you start to see more stability with coaches sticking around, you start to see teams be more consistent. And I expect that in our conference this year. There's always going to be two teams that you didn't expect to be good. They will be good. And I don't want to speak to who I think they are. But I think that Portland State and Idaho become as dangerous as they ever have been, or have been